Hey everyone, it's Billy here with Strictly Sales Buckeye Kayak Fishing Trail Podcast. And oh my goodness, we are here because it's been a year already since we did the KBF event up at East West Harbor. So this event is going to be a little bit different, July 24th and 25th. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Havlicek and Chad Hoover, and they're going to go through all the details that you will get on this video. And then we're going to do a second one that will be more of a captain's meeting down the road. Let's kick it off. Who wants to start this party off?
That'd be Ryan.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it, Chad. So last year, Chad and I got together and we talked about, making a little bit bigger for 2021. We went through the whole COVID scenario and, we had a lot of challenges dealing with that. But last year, we still managed to pull out almost 100 anglers for the East West Harbor event. It's a popular event. 2019, we had 132 anglers. 2018, we had 91. And we really wanted to step it up and see if we could break that 150 or 200 angler barrier. And to get there, we know we had to add additional water. So this year, I'll just give you some stats on the East and West Harbor. Between the two bodies of water, that's about 1,600 acres to fish. Big fish in both bodies of water. It's been great. People love it. There's been a lot of practicing going on. But this year, we've announced the borders have been opened up, and we're going to include Sandusky Bay, Portage River, and approximately 28 miles of the Lake Erie shoreline with a border of approximately a mile out in Lake Erie, and that is going to be weather dependent. Sandusky Bay can also get kind of hairy, but by keeping that in Portage River as well as East and West Harbor, there's still a significant amount of shoreline that can be fished. But I think this is going to add a brand new element to this event, because not only are you going to fish for largemouth, but now smallmouth is in play. And there's been a lot of anglers asking to get on Lake Erie for this event. And guys, we're going to put it together.
We've got a little bit of technological things that we need to do to truly pull it off. We've got the kind of the 100% touch SMS opportunity through Fishing Chaos. We'll remind people, multiple times between now and then, as well as during the actual captain's meeting, to turn on your notifications so that you get that feedback. I've had a couple of anglers at captain's meetings come up to me and say, man, it sure would be nice to have known that my fish got DQ'd before it was an hour before the end of the tournament. And I'm like, give me your phone. They're like, what? I'm like, give me your phone. They give me their phone. It's like, unlock it for me. They unlock it and I go to their notifications. I was like, you see this little swiper right here? If that swiper was to own, you would have got that notification. Well, you should text us all. No, we're not going to add manpower to the work of the judges who should be scoring fish when there's technological options available to us where all that stuff gets automated. And so that's one of the things that's pretty cool. The ability to set the geo boundaries. We tested it out behind the scenes at the St. Clair event this year. Without telling anglers that it was on, and looking at that Canadian border really hard. And we actually had an angler challenge an angler. And then, of course, he asked him to show his track on his GPS. And we ended up having to DQ him for crossing over that line. And, our hats off to him for being honest about it, because there was still some kinks to be worked out. All the system did was let us know that the person had crossed the boundary, but we had it set to the 300 feet, not the 3 feet thing. So it's not something we could have DQ'd off of. So that's getting more dialed in, and to the point where, you'll get a notification if you're out of bounds. Maybe not in the iteration by the time we have this tournament, because it's in less than a month, but very soon you'll be able to get a notification and your screen will lock that you are out of bounds, and you'll have to contact the tournament director to have that lock reinstated. Those are going to be some of the things that we're doing to really improve the competitive nature and the accountability for the challenge series. And I think that those are going to go a long ways towards really establishing a lot more credibility for catch photo release. If there's one thing right now that still are maybe our Achilles heel, is that there's a little bit of honor system still in it, because there's still some requirement for an angler to do certain things on their own, like fish in eligible waters. Now we have a really good system for policing that, and the folks over at the Kayak Bass Bracket Tour just had an issue with that, and it's unfortunate. But as we make improvements in the system and make improvements in accountability and make improvements in trackability, a lot of that stuff, more and more of that stuff is going to go by the wayside. So I'm excited about this first true boundary event, to where we're going to use it as advisory. Obviously, this first time it will be a DQable offense, but there'll be some measure of, we might have to do a polygraph to do it for sure, just because of the nature of how the system works. But by and large, after you and I discuss the boundaries and looking at it, if you get anywhere close, you kind of put yourself in that position, because the really fishable waters are about, half mile in. Getting from that half mile to that mile border, you're really in no man's land anyway. And if you screw up by a half a mile, you probably shouldn't be fishing in a kayak tournament, so just being.
Yeah, and it's a safety thing, right? I mean, it's Lake Erie is a fickle beast, and when she turns her ugly head, it gets bad quickly. And it can be any body of water, it doesn't matter. But being able to be close enough to shore, especially if you're the angler that's still paddling, there's a lot that are out there. We want to be sure that you can feel comfortable enough that either A, there's boats around, because there's going to be a lot of boat traffic. You have to understand that there's a lot of traffic going between the islands and Catawba Island, the main peninsula there, just off of Marblehead. And just to keep that in mind, unfortunately, we made the decision, the islands are off limits. There's a lot of challenges that go around getting back and forth and timing, and it's a 4 or 5 mile paddle to get over there. We just don't see that being worthwhile, even though we know the fishing can be really well depending on the time of year. But we wanted to keep it close to shore to give anglers time to get back to check in. We'll go through that at the captain's meeting like we always do. But it's more of a safety thing than anything else. But again, give anglers the opportunity. I'd love to catch some smallmouth, have them on the board and turn the tournament myself. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm excited. One of the things that we talked about, you mentioned the SMS system. So as you said, leading up to this, we're going to alert anglers whether or not Lake Erie is in play within days of the event. In fact, it may be a call the night before. Hopefully not. July's typically not a bad time, but if the wind is out of the north, northeast, or even the west, it's just it creates a very unsafe environment.
Lake Erie is inbounds until we say it isn't, and we can say it isn't up to start time for the event. Now, based on projections and predictions and forecasts and things like that, we may make that call 2 or 3 or 4 days in advance. But the way I look at it is inbounds until we say it's not. We have the ability to disseminate that information pretty quickly. We have the ability to get 100% accountability. And we have the ability to regulate and restrict that stuff. So back in the day, when we first started doing catch photo release, we always erred towards the side of caution, because we wanted to double, triple, quadruple check in case of something. So that meant we were really limited. And so you and I had some pretty extensive discussions about this, and we decided to allow Erie to be inbounds, establish that 1 mile, get rid of the islands or the temptation to go to the islands, because I think that was just a potential recipe for disaster for that one angler or a couple of anglers that get out there and can't make it back in time. And then you've got to focus on trying to run an award ceremony and a rescue mission at the same time. And it just gets to be a little crazy. But not just making a blanket, it's not allowed, is what we're trying to get away from. We're trying to expand our horizons and do more. Doing the same thing in Erie with getting outside of Presque Isle Bay last year and doing some things like, experimenting with, boundary setting and geofencing in the app, so that we can be a little bit more creative. And that's going to come into play this year in Louisiana at the national championship, because you have private water in Louisiana, which is a unique circumstance based on the fact that Louisiana sued the oil fields, the oil industry, several years ago, and they won a settlement because the oil companies were responsible for erosion and loss of land. And the oil company said, wait a minute, if we're responsible for the land because of the wave action against the shoreline, then recreational boats going by there are going to do the same thing. So therefore, if we're responsible, we have the right to limit it. As soon as they did that and they put up fences or gates or things across canals, then the average citizen said, wait a minute, if they can do it, so can I. And so we've got some tricky situations in the state of Louisiana now that we have to work around. And this is a dress rehearsal for that, if you will. But more importantly, it's a dress rehearsal for being able to do and provide more opportunities for anglers in the future. I'll be honest with you, man. I would love to 2 years from now, 3 years from now, set at a control panel and have a tournament going on in 20 states around the country simultaneously, so that anglers don't have to travel as far, so that there's more opportunities. And we could do those things if we can get to the point where we have a lot more virtual, accountability. And I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that opportunity.
Look how far we've come in the last 10 years. I mean, it's amazing. It's just in the 4 or 5 years I've been doing it. It's fantastic.
And there's some really cool stuff with identifier technology, with angler tracking system technology that we're going to be implementing over the next 3 or 4 years, that truly is going to get to the point where things are just not just next level, but we pole vaulted next level, and we're going to like hard to conceive level with some of this stuff, things that are going to make this sport as bulletproof as it could possibly be, but also make it cost effective to do more angler recognition. I've traveled the country this year, put 70,000 miles on my truck, driving all over the country. But more importantly, I've spent almost $40,000 in travel expenses between hotel rooms and meals and gas and wear and tear and all that kind of stuff. And when you really think about that, that's like money I could put back into the series. And so in my mind, it made sense for me to go out and be at all of these events. And I'm going to be at the rest of them to the best of my ability this year. But I think next year, actually, no, I've already made the decision. Next year, I'm going to build a studio here at home for my peace of mind, for one, because I've been on the road 200 plus days for 7 years. I think I can do a better job of giving the anglers the recognition that they need by doing a produced type show of the series. And some of the stuff that's coming with 5G and our ability to go on the water lives and bring anglers into the studio and to cover them and things like that, it's going to be really awesome. But it's going to allow me to also, work with a tournament coordinator, an on-site tournament coordinator, pretty much like what you guys are doing for this event, and helping me out because of ICAST. And that really is going to allow us to expand our trail series when we were really at the point where we're forcing ourselves to contract it, and intuitively you think to yourself, well, if you've done more events and got less attendance, if you do less events, you'll get more attendance. But I think what's really happened is that as we shrink the platform, both with us, with Hobie, with BASS, people have this mindset that, well, man, if I can't do 4 of the events, it doesn't make sense for me. And they're all so far apart that then they don't do any. Right. So if I can get to the point where we can do, multiple events within striking distance of a core group of anglers, like what you guys have up there, this providing more opportunities, more recognition, that's the ultimate goal. And so I think what I'm going to do next year is just do a more of a produced type sports center desk almost, if you will. And then bring the winners on. Because nobody really wants to stand around for an hour and chat after they fished hard for 2, 3, 4 days, but bring them on for a winner's circle type thing, kind of like what we're doing right here, but have a discussion about their experience, let them get their, I always love it when you put a person on the spot to thank their sponsors and they thank 2 out of 12, right? Because they're just not in that mindset. But if they've had 2 or 3 days or to think about it and you do that midweek, you've got an opportunity to really tell a better story. They've got an opportunity to tell a better story. And more importantly, the anglers themselves had a better chance to represent themselves to a much larger audience, and so that's kind of the transition we're going to be making. And, speaking of transitions, not exactly sure how much of this you want me to talk about right now, but we're going to try to transition this event to really the biggest event that the Midwest has ever seen. We have a great partnership with a city in the Midwest that's already locked in. We're going to hold off a little bit on making the 100% official announcement, but it's really going to bring in a lot of water. It's going to bring in water from St. Clair all the way down the coast and over to East West Harbor into a joint kind of a super trail type concept. And, Ryan, I don't know that we've even had a chance to talk about this part of it yet, but I've been formulating this concept called the super trail. I'm a hardcore competitor myself. And, I hear the argument between the argument between the 1-day trails and the 2-day trails and which is better. And to be honest with you, neither of them's better. What's better is a 3-day trail, right? What's better is a 3-day competition where you cut after day 2. And so next year, I'm going to piggyback at least one per major region. When I say region, I'm talking more quadrant. One in the Northeast, one in the Southeast, one in the Southwest, and one in the Upper West for what I'm going to call a super trail. And the way that that's going to work is it's going to be the same as the day 1 and day 2 trail where you have 2 opportunities, but it'll be a separate entry fee.
Yep.
But it'll be a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, and we cut to the top 10 on Sunday. Only the top 10. Because here's the thing. If we're really going to talk about making kayak fishing more visible, if we're going to really talk about kayak fishing being more of where we build the brands of the anglers, we have to narrow those events down and focus on a smaller group of guys to elevate their platform. And yes, after 2 days, there could still be 30, 40, 50 people in it. But if you cut it down to 10, that's a whole different creature. It's a lot like having a mini 10 around the country and having everybody have a little bit of a taste of how that feels. And that's the idea, is that this area is ripe for that. But I'll go one step further and say this. COVID did a lot of negative things in the world, but it also did quite a few positive things in the world of kayak fishing. One, I think it made us all take things more seriously. It made us all appreciate the opportunities a little bit more. It got rid of some of the petty bickering. But at the same time, it moved, for at least for us at KBF, it moved the national championship to the end of the year. Now, if I had abruptly just said, I'm going to move the national championship to the end of the year, the world of kayak fishing would have lost their freaking mind. But because COVID forced us to do it, it was a different creature. And by aligning the national championship, Trail Series championship, and Challenge Series championship together, we have created the kayak fishing mega event. And a lot of people think that the national championship is something of a lottery tournament. It's not. It's easy to get into, or it's relatively easy to get into, but that's just getting you into the gauntlet, right? That's just getting you into the fight. That doesn't mean you have a chance of winning. You still got to be in the top 100 after 2 days. And after 2 days, when it cuts to 100, that's just a really competitive trail event at that point, right? You take that.
Hard to do.
It's super hard.
There's
It's
a lot
super
of
hard.
anglers in this country that are great.
It's super hard. Exactly. But the one thing that I'll say to the critics that say it's not a real tournament is this: there's not been one person who's won the national championship who's gone on to become a dud and never do anything else again. They've all gone out there and proven themselves on the battlefield, if you will, again and again. But at the same time, it's also that tournament that you can go from being relatively unknown or 100% unknown to everybody in kayak fishing knows your name. If you win the national championship, you're pretty much a household name in kayak fishing, at least in our community, relatively quickly. The point I'm trying to make is this: we moved it to October because we had to. We decided to keep it there because it made sense. Because if you went from October and then said, well, now COVID's over, let's move it back to March, you put them too close together and you'd be 3 years leveling that out. And it was already 2 years as it is. But now, with it being in the end of the year, it opens up the entire country for doing national championships. We're not stuck anymore with we've got to be way south or as far enough south for it to be warm enough to do the national championship in March or April. Now we can say, where's it going to be still warm enough? And I'll argue with anybody, oh, you could still get a cold front. We've had snow at the national championship on Kentucky Lake in March. So it's no more volatile. It's no more volatile up north. Yeah, it's no more volatile up north in October than it is down south in March. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much comparable. So this really allows us to explore some really cool opportunities. And I think what we're doing here for this event is the exploration of, is this lake a good enough draw? Is this combination of this lake and St. Clair and the connecting bodies of water a good enough draw? And if we do a super trail there next year and it draws correctly, can we make the case then that there's enough access, enough water, enough diversity, and enough of a challenge that we host the biggest event in kayak fishing at that location? You know, I'm excited about the venue. I'm excited about the hospitality. I'm excited about the ability to come over the top for the anglers. So we're going to have a monster time, no matter how many people show up. We're going to have a great event. And I think we're going to really activate a true representation of how big the Midwest is for kayak fishing, you know? So this year's a preview of that, you know?
It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, each and every time we come up here to this event, you know, I run into a number of anglers and have perfect strangers, you know, that, you know, as being a director, let them know where I'm at in my campsite, coming up saying, hey, you know, this is a great venue. We enjoy camping. There's a bunch of new places to eat up there now. I mean, you talk about the community, but just getting out and doing what we love to do. Hang out, talk fishing, and go fishing. I mean, it's really boils down to those two things, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of boat you have or what you're pulling with. None of that matters. It's just having fun getting out on the water. I mean, I was doing a little pre-fishing myself in Sandusky Bay, never done it before, and just trying to fish some areas I've never been that look good on a map. And I'll tell you what, when you get a 20-pound channel cat on the line on a kayak with a little bit of waves, you had got your hands full.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not like you could just, you know, boat flip that thing and get them off the line and keep moving. It takes you a little bit to deal with it.
Right.
But,
yes, sir.
You know, it makes for a fun day. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, hey, guys, we promised everyone that we would still come back and do a captain's meeting. So I don't know what else Ryan had to talk about, but I'm going to tell you guys that more than once when Chad was talking, I got the goosebumps. Maybe it's because he's talking about the Midwest. Maybe because he's talking about an October event up north. But the biggest takeaway from this entire 30 minutes or whatever for me has been, if you want to be at one of the biggest kayak bass fishing tournaments ever, it's going to be in the future. And Chad said it here. This is like a preview. You can come up here to Sandusky Bay or East West Harbor, get up here and find out what it's all about. Make the drive, find out what campground you like. This is really exciting. It's like, this is the year before maybe one of the biggest years that we've had up here in Ohio. I'm just going to call it Ohio. I know St. Clair's in a different state, but I'm a Buckeye, so I'm going to come on. So sign up, everyone.
We'll be hosting the event in Ohio, just so you know. I got to say this about Ohio. A lot of people don't realize this, but in my book, when I wrote a book, the cover photo from my book was in Indiana, but literally like half of the pictures inside of my book are from Ohio. And I tell people all the time, Ohio is a lot like my last name. It's got an H and two O's in it. So it's got some really good water, you know? And that's the same thing I tell people all the time, like water's in my blood because it's in my name. It starts with H2O, you know? And Ohio's the same way. It's just kind of out of order, you know? But yeah, I fished the AEP stuff up there for a long time without anybody knowing that I was, or that there was kayak fishing. Kayak fishing wasn't popular. And I just found places like that I could go to get away from the crowds because I had kind of blown it up in other places around the country. But Ohio's got some ridiculously good waters, some river fishing that's like sick. And,
oh yeah,
you know, this is closer to me than most of the other places we go. It's way closer than Kissimmee or Virginia or Texas or Louisiana, you know? And so it's not in my backyard, but it's like 3 houses down from my backyard. So it's close enough for me that I get to go. In fact, I was planning on driving up and camping for this whole event because I had it in my head that all my sponsors were going to let me like skate out of ICAST this year. And then the reality set in that was not the case. And so therefore I'm having to fly up, and I'm probably going to squat on the corner of Mr. Havlicek's lot there and camp. But yeah, I'll be back though for sure, because I'm coming back this fall to do a site visit for the other location we're talking about, and to shoot some videos and produce some content to talk about that event for next year. And then, you know, one other thing that we're going to start doing this year, different than last year, is we're not going to save up a bunch of events to make this big announcement. When you really think about it, when you do something like that as an organization like KBF, that's really more for you as the organization. That's for us. But as far as the anglers go, the sooner you can find out when an event is going to be, the better off you are for vacation time, for where you're going to stay, for booking, for things like that. So this year, instead of dragging it out and deciding, oh, okay, here's the schedule, we're just going to, as we get an event locked in, we're just going to announce it. And so I firmly believe that we'll get this announcement out pretty quickly. All of us need to get together and have a sidebar and talk about dates and times of year and things like that, so we can have the best possible event. And then we're going to try to have everything out, with the exception of the fact that I'm probably going to leave 2 undecided trails on the schedule. There's a reason for that I won't be able to reveal immediately, but we'll leave probably 2 locations undecided. But we're going to start dropping event details within the next 2 weeks for the 2021 season. And the way we're going to do it is just put the event together and make it live, just like a 2021 event is live. It'll be an event for 2022, but it'll be a live. We'll have the boundaries up, we'll have the details up, and people can start planning for it. So one thing that I've been doing for a lot of the trails, and I want to make sure that we extend the offer for this one, is for everybody that posts the announcement for the event, the screenshot, basically the banner for the event, and use the hashtag KBF Trail 2021. I'm going to pick a winner for the entry to the trail event. And if we can get over 100 posts of that event, then I'll pick I'll pick 2 more. So I'll pick 3. So again, if you guys can put this out there, even if you're not planning on fishing this event, if you screenshot that banner and post it and use hashtag KBF Trail 2021, you could win a trail event entry for another event. But this is our way of using the community to promote the series instead of me paying it to Google or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. It's basically for us, by us. And I'd rather take that $115 and give it back to you guys, or $300 and give it back to you guys, instead of just putting it all into social media ad buys. So hashtag KBF Trail 2021.
Thanks,
and we'll pick some winners. And then I've got some more giveaways and stuff that we'll announce as we get closer, as we get entries, as things start to ramp up. And hopefully I'll be coming out of ICAST, rolling up to see you guys with some fresh, juicy stuff that I can talk about. So that'll be fun.
Well, we're coming up on the 2-week mark this weekend. So if you haven't got out and pre-fished yet, I suggest you do, because it's coming up fast.
We have 2 minutes left. Ryan, do you want to wrap this up and bring it home? Anything else? Final words you want to say?
No, just, if you guys have any questions, you can find me on the BKFT website as the tournament director for this event. I'm available anytime. My numbers should be there as well, and just reach out to me if you have any questions. But everything should be pretty straightforward, and we look forward to seeing everybody at East West Harbor and Port Clinton this year.
All right. And then, Chad, you have a little bit over a minute. Final words?
It's heating up for this right here. That's the hardware. That's the Angler of the Year trophy for 2021 for the Far Wide Angler of the Year. But it's also the race where it's going to come down to setting the table for who's going to be in the 10 this year, right? And who's going to make that walk into that house or houses when we head back down to Kissimmee, Florida for next year, for what is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, events of the year, where we get to take 10 guys and pit them against each other. If you guys haven't done so yet, check out Bally Sports. The 10 episode is airing on my show on there right now. Set your DVRs, watch it, tell me what you think in the comment section. But man, thanks for having me. That's all I got.
Heck yeah, I will. I'll put a link. I'll put a link in the description of this YouTube channel to that event and to Fishing Chaos and everything that we've mentioned. I will comb through this episode, make sure we do it right, and can't wait to talk to you guys again here pretty soon. So thanks, guys.
I like the haircut, by the way.
Thanks.
Y'all have a good one.